Hello, everyone. Welcome to this installment of Esoterics Today. I am your co-host, the Suburban Lightworker, Amber Chamberlain. We have with us today our other co-host of our intrepid show, the fabulous Satara Jules Lightbringer. Today, our show is going to focus on sovereignty and the sovereign life. Many of us here are starting to hear that word. If you have been at all in the spiritual community, esoterics community, even more so now, Satara, the ufology community, you're starting to, because we're seeing a lot of crossover and blending of constructs and themes as we all learn and grow together. So we're starting to see that word more ubiquitously. So we thought it was time to bring this to your attention and break it down for you a little bit. So I think I'm going to ask Satara to write us into, well, what is sovereignty?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So from a point of view of sovereignty, it is standing really in your own power, in your own energy, without diluting it by giving it away to other or others around you. So for many people, the topic won't be so much about giving it away, but working out how to get it back. Because we are taught here from a very early age to hand away our power. First of all, we hand it away to our family and parents as children. We allow them to make the decisions for them. We allow them to decide what we're doing rather than us decide at that point. From there, tutors, teachers, etc. will continue that thread to take that away from us. So they take it away rather than hand it to us. And this is very much a pattern when we start after the education system, when we get out of university and we're then going into like the job market, very much still handing power away. We are allowing others that are perceived to be above us in the chain to fundamentally alter how we work and how we do things that might not quite sit with where we come from our internal integrity.
I like how you're positioning sovereignty of self as a birthright, because that is what I will say that it is.
Yes.
Because in the entirety of the cosmology, sovereignty is a fundamental given. It's a fundamental structure, but we in ourselves explore sovereignty across the cosmology from different aspects. And so here we are in a third dimensional form, if I'm interpreting you correctly, that upon birth, we immediately release the construct that is cosmologic of sovereignty, and we engage the programming behavior that begins to come here on this planet, which is provided by our parents, by our local communities, by our society, by our educational institutions, our governmental institutions, our commercial institutions, that we get spoon-fed from the beginning and programmed and groomed, I would even say.
Yes, very much so.
To hand away what is an essential aspect of our soul structure that is incredible. It is completely familiar in any other resonance domain frequency across cosmology. So I think that's a very important positioning of what is sovereignty. I would also say, maybe from my words, Satara, sovereignty is a state of being. It is a return to yourself, or a return of power to yourself. This is what you're talking about too. It is going around within your energetic framework as well as what you perceive as outside of it. But because of the holographic universe, there isn't anything outside of it. And reclaiming pieces and parts and healing the pieces and parts that were disempowered, disenfranchised, traumatically injured, such that we released it.
Yeah.
Or we think it was stolen from us, when indeed that was also a handing it away.
Yes,
So there's a lot here, people. Sovereignty is really something. The other thing I want to say about sovereignty, and it was a girlfriend who gave me this feedback sort of incidentally months ago. Oh no, it's last year. She said, "Well, Amber," because I was probably complaining about something or whatever, and she says, "But I thought you were sovereign." Okay, what she was saying to me is she was sort of judging me for my complaint, because shouldn't I be able to not be participating in whatever it was I was complaining about because of my sovereign nature? What, as if I truly are Switzerland. You know, we tend to, and on this planet, you know, the, as if, not Switzerland, but as if I'm not impacted. That even though sovereign living is is an active state of being, it is not a proclamation of being set aside.
Yeah.
And she was, and there was her misunderstanding, I could tell, about what we were claiming when we say we are sovereign.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not really making that crystal clear, but we'll get into it because there's so many things to say. The other thing, and I'm going to show you who's joining us, the other thing I wanted to say, the first place, Satara, that I encountered the word sovereign and I am sovereign, that phrase, the I am phrase,
Yeah.
was back in about 2012, 13, when I first joined that Facebook community, was starting to go so much further, the one that you and I have in common. Mm-hmm. Over some years, as I would get into Facebook messages and meeting with some people outside of that, something that they would say before they would engage with me, or if we, you know, connected up, they would say, "I am sovereign." Mm-hmm. Did you experience that?
No, typically. But yeah, I know it went on because I'd had people come to me going, "I've just had this person say this to me." Yeah. So they'd come to me to explain what somebody else was doing to them.
And I didn't have you to ask, so I had to figure myself out and figure out what I was being told, and what that person really wisely, how they were using the engineering of the word. Words have power. Words have frequency and vibratory resonance, and you can harness that for anything that you want. And what I realized as I went on, when I would run into pretty powerful beings, I could feel their energy. I'm an empath. I could feel them. And this is why I was wanting to engage with them, to ask questions or connect and learn from them, or to share information or ask, you know, these people were harnessing "I am sovereign" as the first sentence in our messaging engagement to let me know who they are and what they will not permit.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that because it let me know I was in safe territory, that I had actually engaged with the proper person. Yeah. And that was before I knew who would be more proper for me and what vibratory resonance I really should be engaging in, that which I should stay away from. Because back in the early empath days of that comeuppance, it was hard to know, because particularly this group and other groups like them, aggregate thousands of people.
Yeah, totally.
So do you see what I'm saying about that?
Yeah, I can get that totally. You know, because some people who haven't quite got in tune with themselves, it's very difficult to then be in tune with other selves outside of self, to be able to work out if there's an agenda with them, or if that is the true essence of them that is being brought forward.
So I'm going to guarantee that in many cases, when they would put the "I am sovereign" statement out, if I could recognize that, honor it, and meet it energetically, they would feel that, and we could proceed.
Yes.
And so it's sort of a ring past not, a guardian at the gate of their energetic platform that these folks taught me by offering that. Now, have I ever done that to anyone else? I think a couple of times I did as I was figuring out how to determine, I would say friend from foe, but
Yeah.
when I say foe, I would say the individuals whose energetics could be difficult to get
Yeah.
into, painful. Did I stumble in some of that? Did I get into some places that I thought, peace out?
Oh, yeah.
We
Yeah.
all
Because,
did.
you know, because there are many people who are playing the devil's advocate here,
Yeah. And
which
I get
are
it.
perfect because they
Right.
are the triggers to us to go, oh, damn, I missed that.
I missed
Thank you for circling back round with that. I've now got it.
that. Yeah. Thanks for punching me
Bye.
with that.
You know.
Thanks for punching me. Thanks for bruising my energetic framework, so I can now have to go clean that up. But
Yeah.
that's the way in which I saw sovereignty first come online. And I'm the kind of soul that when I'm presented with a new construct, I actually just let it ride through my energy system. And I find its encodement, I find its frequency, I find all connections. I kind of follow my own breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And then it arrives on me. So I just wanted to kind of position all this because somehow that's important. I'm going to tell you who's showing up for us in the conversation today. This is Horus. So Tara, show us your Horus.
I will show you one of them because I am a huge Egyptian buff, and I bought this beautiful carving when I was in Egypt. So this is a lovely Horus. Horus here is wearing a headdress, which is a take on the crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt. Now, what the headdress actually relates to, which is why I picked this particular carving, this bottom piece here relates to the part of the head and brain called the Jade Gate.
The Jade Gate.
Gate is basically what allows us to work in a cosmic way. This is where we actually filter more galactic and cosmic information through from a point of view of how our chakras and systems work. So this is a perfect Jade Gate. I love the fact that there's a like defined edge here that then has a smaller piece on top, which actually refers to something called the Golden Gate. Now, the Golden Gate is also known as the Eye of God, because when the Golden Gate is fully activated, which it isn't actually on this card, partially it's opening but hasn't opened, because the Golden Gate gives a 360-degree vision.
Yeah, it's an eye upward and around.
Yeah.
Up and down. I love that, Sitar. What a beautiful lesson.
So you can see why I wanted this, because I every time I look at it, I'm reminded of that and have the awareness of exactly how that works. I came in with an activated Jade Gate, which is why I have the memories and connections from birth, but I actually opened that up further in 2013 and started to actively work on the Golden Gate.
See, and what I want to point out that Sitara said that's really significant, and by the way, that's what's on this card is Cosmic Gateway. And he's saying your thoughts are magnetic and powerful. Miraculous changes are occurring. So it's really speaking to the Jade Gate, the Golden Gate, then above. What we saw happen at this time in I think it's the 25,000 year cycle that we're coming through and coming towards this, why we hear ascension and words like that, or evolution and change, is because we're at the cycle phase of that leap. We're seeing more people talk about in the spiritual community, sort of the back of their head, the pressure in the back of the head, the pressure in the top of the head, over the head, even further up. We're seeing more activation en masse because of the time on the cycle, the planetary cosmologic cycle. And it's beautiful to have Satara be able to mention this and understand it and come with it open already. You understand that we are all here, you viewers and listeners are here for this time. And you too are having, I would call them symptoms, but experiences that are sometimes difficult for you to understand or difficult to place. That's why we do shows like this, because there are people among us, we are two of them, who are asked to share our experiences and our knowledge base so that you can see yourself. So you can get in touch with your jade gate, so you can go explore what that golden gate above is. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Satara. It's just sort of, again, these conversations we have together, I think, drop a lot of breadcrumbs. It's a breadcrumb trail.
Yeah, very, very much so. And, and I think it's useful for people, as you say, when they start to feel the pressure and start to feel the activations that are there, it's then knowing that they're normal.
And
they're not losing their mind.
Yeah.
That is actually what is happening literally on a physical level, because it actually changes the shape of your head. It does change the whole bone and muscle structure. And people don't quite appreciate that perhaps until they are 3/4 of the way through the Jade Gate upgrades, because you suddenly think, oh, what's going on? My neck feels a bit heavy. And the whole muscle structure has to also to be able to take the additional weight that is being added into the brain capability. So the skull's getting bigger. It has to have the scaffolding. And the scaffolding is our neck.
Okay, now that you're blowing people's minds with this construct, we might as well go the whole way and say, if you want a physical pictorial reference for this, go back to your ancient Egyptians, the hieroglyphs, and you see the beings with their skulls elongated.
Yeah.
That's the example of our heritage.
Yeah, very much so. This is, and the Jade Gate has to be fully operational because of the whole muscle change, the whole bone structure, the additional space for the brain to expand at the back, to be able to be fully operational and perfect for the goal to be able to even start to manifest. Because how can that manifest without the scaffolding? It's like you need sky hooks for it. There'd be nothing to actually hold it within your physical frame.
Well, and if you get to Googling about this stuff, which of course Google delivers, trust what comes, because it will. If you come in with an intent for something particular, you will get exactly, usually on the first stroke, what it is that
what it is that
you're going to see examples of people, human beings today on the planet today, who have vestigial skull shape from the ancients that came in with that skull shape or resonant. You'll see kids and adults. You don't typically, I don't think you see them in the U.S. or in Europe proper, and more of these moderns, but sometimes you do. But mostly you'll see them in other cultures because we have we have some influences genetically that
our genetics have been diluted considerably in what is perceived as the West.
Yeah, so we take on more of some more things to plant, and more of a Syrian, Pleiadian, Lemurian, Atlantean, and others, Lyran, I think, predominantly. There's a lot that we take on that have moved us away from that Jade Gate. Shape.
Very much so. It's changed considerably with the way the constructs have worked, which is why most people who go through the upgrades get the like, wow, this is all changing, this is all moving, and my hat no longer fits. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You need to go up another couple of hat sizes because they no longer fit.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting.
Literally.
All right, we'll shift back into, because we took a nice little road trip for everyone's benefit today on the sovereign life around sovereignty and some of the underlying principles and energetics. I think that was important to say. And actually, I think we sort of got into some of the heritage, but I'm going to bring with what we just did. Satara, could you give us a little primer on what you think of as the heritage of the word and of the energetic of sovereignty, a sovereign being? Place it in esotericism, place it in mysticism, spirituality of the ancients. What is the construct sovereignty from that perspective?
Basically, it is knowing that, first of all, that you as you are enough. So it talks about the fact that you know that whatever you're doing, you're enough. You've got the tools, everything that you could possibly ever need already, without flipping another page in a book or going on Google. Yeah, and that is the fundamental thing, is actually knowing that that is where you sit anyhow. That everything you need, you have inside you, all the keys you need to unlock everything you carry, you are everything. We see this on this planet if we go back in time and look at some of what we see as perceived religious leaders, if you like. If we go into like the Buddha, is a perfect example. The Buddha was deemed to be hit by a bolt of lightning underneath the Bodhi tree and became all-knowing in that instant. And because he became all-knowing, he was then a guide for others to try and move them into their own individual all-knowing pathways. Other, I can look at Muhammad if we want to go Islam. We can look at like Yeshua if we want to look at like Christianity. The thread is there throughout every single religion you want to look at. We'll have one perceived Godhead within the thread. However, in a lot of circumstances, that has been lost in translation somewhere, because people then begin to worship these Sufis, the yogis, the Buddhas, whatever you want to call them. So they then put them on a pedestal, which then raises that person above the individual, when actually we're all equal. So it's all about equality that's kind of gone on at this planet. But actually, it is the perfect lesson for not giving your power away to a deity or another, because it's very easy to do that. How many of the workers do we have here that work predominantly with a particular type of being? Angelics come to mind here, because that goes throughout religions and it goes throughout all sorts of pathways. But most people who are working with another type of being exclusively are handing their power away to that bit. They're saying, oh, Archangel Michael's going to do that. Oh yes, Archangel Raphael's going to do that. And actually, they are not doing it themselves. So it is a form of what is another common thing that we're hearing all about at the moment, called spiritual bypassing. So you're literally handing your power to another to let them do it, instead of actually knowing that you are more than capable of doing it yourself.
So you have positioned several really beautiful themes. Now, esoterically, sometimes in the spiritual community, we refer to some of these as laws, although you and I would say that's not necessary to put them in these containers, but human beings do this.
Yeah, we like boxes in the 3D world.
So you're mentioning themes about there's a law of one, there's a law of sovereignty, There's a lot of, in other words, this universal or cosmologic law at play. That's the way we like to use those words, which is just to remind, Satara is reminding us that we come to the planet totally prepared for the life we are going to lead this time here.
Yeah.
And we come to the planet totally prepared to access all that is.
Yeah.
It is a matter of finding our power again to access that information, access the connectivity. It's about a story of accessing, self-access.
And we hold the keys.
And we hold the keys.
You know, I've used angelics as just one
Beautiful.
random example that's quite rife here.
Yeah.
But like, how many people are like, oh, but I need to meditate with this master, that master. You think actually you're the master, meditate with yourself.
I think the reason that I like, I'm really grateful you brought that up about the masters, the angelics, archangels, the, Kutumi and the Kuan Yins and the Buddha, Jesus, just to name some, Muhammad. The reason I like that you brought it up from this angle is that for me and my understanding is they are me too.
Of course.
This is the key to sovereignty in which on my platform is situated at this time in my life, that in the we are all one story from a subatomic particulate level. So now we're bringing in the quantum mechanical story in. I am you and you are me, and I can harness your construct, my own construct, because it's the same. When I want to engage, say, lately I've been, I guess in the last week or two, identified Jophiel. Okay. I particularly from, I think that's a yellow ray.
Yes.
Yeah. And I wanted to unlock that aspect of myself that is Jophiel and the yellow ray, to amplify some work I'm doing for myself and my expression on the planet. Notice that I did not supplicate myself to Jophiel as a separate being or entity outside of me. Rather, I went into my energetic framework and just opened the pathway of relationship to that part of myself that is Jophiel. Do you understand, listeners and viewers, that this is an example of what Satara is describing? It's sort of a real life example of that.
Yeah, very much so. To go within to get the information from within.
That aspect of myself that is Jophiel. It is the understanding to the platform that there is no you and no me. It is just all me. It's just all you. I am you. You are me. Yeah, and when you really get there, you have access to everything. You have access to everything. Do I like, something that I love about, let's talk about go to Google. Here's why I like going to Google. Because when I go to Google, I'm going to me.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's all mine too. And that I know that I can shortcut, talk about a circuitry board. I don't have to sit for 6 hours in meditation to go grab down the aspect of that information that's informing me. I'm going to actually put out the thought and the feeling, two powerful things together. They create a form to grab exactly what I want informationally from the infosphere that something like a Google or the internet aggregates, and I got it in front of me. So it's less about a searching and less about asking for something from someone else.
Yeah.
And it's asking of it from me, engaging it quantum mechanically to go grab it.
Yeah, very much so. So it's like a filing system.
It's a filing system. And to me, the internet is a magnificent card catalog. If you were old enough in the library system, it's like my own librarian.
Yeah, very much so.
Reference librarian. So I'm glad we spoke about it from the esoteric construct of sovereignty. And I want to position here to the people who watch and listen to this that there are inheritances in families and in groups of beings, humans on our planet, who never lost touch with this very esoteric understanding about how to harness this kind of energy and how to use it for whatever their goals and interests are. This is where we can talk about the positive polarity and negative polarity on the planet, service to self, service to others. This is free for the taking for anybody who understands, because it's all a part of us.
Yeah, very, very much so. And it's why an awful lot of us, I'll give you a random example. If there's something that I cannot get my head around, if I'm looking at it and just thinking that's just not working for me, for whatever reason, I'm looking at that and it's just not computing for me. Yeah, I just think, okay, that's fine. So who does it compute for? Ah, that aspect of me over there. Lovely. Let me get the download from them then. So I don't need someone then to actually teach me or show me how to do it. I will go into their little part of the program and see how they work and go, okay, great, lovely, thank you, I'm having that. I'll go, right, I've got it, because I'll duplicate that and add that chip that I've just taken from them, stick that on my motherboard and go, okay, great, I can do that now.
Plug and play. And yeah. I'll tell you another manifestation of this, everyone, that Sitara is just describing also. She and I have both, I'm sure, Sitara, you've probably always been like this, me less so, or less aware that I was doing it, but now I'm aware I'm doing it. I actually will just, there are some things that you'll read sometimes about people who don't read a book, they just put their hand on it.
Yeah, that's me.
I know that's you. And I now that at this time of my life in certain things that I will not need to read the whole, I will just need to engage the general framework, just sort of touch into it, and then I'm really going to have the understanding that I need to have. It's a little bit weird because humans have had, you know, because of the sine wave on the planet, we talk about it mathematically on the sine wave, we've had such a more long arc to our consciousness, slower. The planet, the toroidal spin on the planet is so much faster right now that the sine waves are much shorter if we were to see it if we were to measure. And physics knows this. I mean, this is, I'm not talking the same thing that physics does not know, scientists don't know today. That means our thoughts are faster, our manifestation capabilities are faster, everything's faster, our DNA is spinning faster, such that that's the only reason that that's happening. You came on the planet already fast like that. That's part of the Jade Gate. That's part of everything that you were hooked up to yourself, and there wasn't going to be a lot of impact and interference on that to hold that here. I had to then reawaken, you know, later in life, which is true of a lot of us in the Gen X and baby boomer generation, whereas the millennials come in spinning a little faster towards what Sitara came in with. The Gen Z, the Z generation behind the millennials, you know, is more like what Sitara came in with over 50 years ago. So just giving everybody sort of a framework about that.
How many years ago? Did you get that right?
I'm not sure. I know I did, but I think that my sister here, you know, she's playing with us. All right. So, all this said, that we talked about the principles, now we're at this point that I want to do two more things. I want to talk about how we embody this sovereign theme here, how you do it, how I do it. Then I want to give some suggestions as we round up the show for what people can do to kind of take baby steps with this construct and begin to weave it into their energetic platform each day of their lives, and watch what happens when that happens. It's an accelerator. Sister over here is telling you it's an accelerator.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
How do you give us some examples about how you embody sovereignty in your day-to-day life, Sitara?
For me, an awful lot of the actual sovereignty is being brutally honest with myself. Because we're very good here. We've been taught how to gloss over things, to kind of turn a blind eye, to don't want to get involved with that, so we don't. But of course, all of that is separation from self. So it's being able to actually look at something that you don't want to necessarily have to deal with, and be able to look at that and be able to learn from it. So it can be events that are happening across the planet, which are thousands of miles away. But of course, that is still talking about me on some level, because it is all me. So I will kind of pull stuff apart and analyze it and work out what is perhaps causing that ripple. What do I need to learn from that is in front of me?
Can you give us a real world example of something that just happened to you?
I can indeed. I have been blessed lately, and blessed is far from the word I've called it, to have a tooth extraction. I've not had to have a tooth extraction before, so I was unaware of the shitstorm that would turn into. So it had to be surgically removed. It was going to be a 20-minute thing. It turned into an hour and 5 thing because there was complications. Oh, it all went to hell. But that's fine. It was what it was, you know. But I was aware that through that time, I was, to say the least, very, very unhappy, because I was in a lot of pain. You can imagine. I couldn't even open. It was swollen up. I was that swollen up for 3 days. I couldn't even see the one side of my face. So I was a mess. Really pretty Bride of Frankenstein, I think I likened myself to for a few days. So 5 weeks on now, the swelling has finally gone, to give our viewers an idea of the issues between that. So of course I was feeling very sorry for myself, because I'm human, I hurt, I'm eating yogurt and soup and anything that's not solid. So I wasn't the happiest of bunnies. And of course that meant I was doing something that I rarely do, and I cried my heart out. But I noticed when I cried my heart out, something happened in another part of the world that was experiencing fires. Now, Australia, bless it, has had the worst fires known in history. I'm aware that there's others, but from known history, from what everybody else is looking at the moment, this has been unheard of, the devastation that has been going on there. But I found it really, really interesting that I bottled it and bottled it and bottled the pain for that long, until one day I just broke my heart. And it was that day that the rain stopped. Now, there is a perfect example of, I was so angry with the pain, because that's the human instinct. It's like, yeah.
Right.
And I then had the, so I've been partially responsible for some of the fires, in a way, because that fire speaks about anger, it talks about heightened passion, it talks about all of what we think of as devastation with fires. To be able to come full circle and actually begin to create and allow water to leave the body in the form of tears, that to then allow the rains to settle down the anger, but of course the tears are settling down the everything, because you've just got to what we think of in the human form as breaking point to be able to plateau. So there's an example.
So in that example, and that's a really large, like planetary wide example of sovereignty and how you experienced yourself. You were in your personal place of intense passion and fury and heat.
Yeah.
And then when you moved into your emotions of that was emotional pain and suffering, then you moved into the place of release, recovery. The tears had to come, and you were you realized that you tracked that along with the heat and the passion and intensity of the fires in Australia, and then its own resolution into sort of the rain and the softening and the release of that passionate intensity of the planet. So how do you, what about that story for you speaks to sovereignty?
It speaks about owning that and going, okay, that might be all the way over there, but that is still me. That is still a bit of me that I had not addressed. To a certain degree, it is now addressed, because that was a huge, huge learning for me. Even now, I still get smacked in the face occasionally with things, and this is a perfect example of that.
So for you listeners and viewers, Sattvari gave you a very grand planetary to the personal, from the personal to the planetary example. It's beautiful. It's full of metaphor. It's full of, the you are me and I am you, regardless of size or place or time. It's a beautiful example of sovereignty from that perspective.
And makes us, be aware of the fact that we know that we are supposed to be mindful all of the time, but certain things here take us out of the mindfulness.
I think so. Well, my example is very, very personal too, and it's certainly it's a dynamic that's common on the planet, and it's relationship. A couple of different ways. Let's see which. Well, I'm just being asked to also pivot into one that has to do with work. But then this is more personal. This one also is just more personal to relationship for me. I have noticed that the more I witness my mate, the more I just see him as me, and remove judgment about me as him, I am incredibly more loving of what appears to be the other. There are things that, as with any relationship, I don't like. I don't like about him. Because of course, there are things he doesn't like about me. But they are things then that I don't like about myself. If they are being shown to me in what we perceive as other.
Yeah, as a mirror.
As a mirror. And the harder I was being judgmental or pushing against the other, him, in this situation, I was pushing against and resisting myself, rejecting myself, rejecting to witness and see and love, apply radical self-love. And then what that manifested, and it consistently manifests, and sometimes I slip up and forget, and every time I forget, I get it right between the eyes. Mm-hmm. But when I am applying radical self-love and just witnessing and accepting, but witnessing, and coming and communicating from that position with a lot of forgiveness, a lot of self-love, a lot of love for others, which is all self-forgiveness, self-love. What it is that I'm resisting historically goes away. It diminishes. In other words, the vibratory resonance or frequency of line of communication that I'm on, if I handle it with more sovereignty of self, that I'm,
doesn't it?
Yeah, sense of self-responsibility, that is me, then what I resist, I no longer resist. Since I'm no longer resisting, it shifts.
It's gone.
Away.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say that without, and I'm not going to give too many I'm not going to give
of course,
a description of that, but I think everybody watching and listening can understand what I'm saying. Now, what comes up for people are, well, am I supposed to take bad behavior? Am I supposed to just let people treat me any old way? Oh no, I don't accept my own bad. I don't accept bad behavior. I don't accept it in my energy field of myself. I expect better of myself. Do I accept me victimizing myself? Absolutely not. I'm sovereign. I can change that. So anything that is perceivably outside of me doing that, I bring into me, because that is me doing that to myself, and I don't find that acceptable. I change it. But that's going
Very
to
much
get
so.
yeah. So let's pivot then as we bring into the end of the show here is what about, well, and before I do, because I had written a note to myself to say, I take ultimate self-responsibility.
Yeah.
All aspects of my current life, this lifetime, I'm pleased to say, all is me. The fires in Australia, the children who are killed in their schools by gunmen and women, people killing children, addiction on the planet. It's all me, and I serve those aspects of myself. I'm enough. That I came and I reconnect to reawaken my sovereignty, and my sovereignty of self and my sovereignty of service. All my karmic patterns are here for my reclamation and for my ability to heal, release, and mutate.
Yeah.
I am the magician,
Mhm.
the great magician.
And it's all about being able to accept that that is all you. That is all the different facets of you across timelines that are coming together, manifest to actually go, you see that you don't like looking at? Look at it closer. Look at it closer, understand it. Once you understand it, accept it, move on.
No victims. There are no victims. I am
No.
never a victim. And those of you who know, you won't know, only friends of mine who listen to this show will know what my life path has been here on this planet to date, and what that's involved. And I don't need to say too much, because those of you here on this show with us, we all pretty much came through some incredibly excruciating, difficult life patterns, and we have it here, because that's sort of the rule of thumb about us from a light work perspective. Very much true of me. I'm not any different. That is also me. That is all mine. That was my karmic pattern exploration this lifetime, and the enormous freedom that comes from the position of being sovereign. I cannot even express in this conversation my sense of personal freedom. It's threading the eye of the needle, confronting the guardian at the gate when you go and claim your sovereignty. It's an accelerator.
Yeah, very, very much so. And the fact that that you can stand in your integrity and not be shifted. So
Can't be moved. What did you say to me when we were jib jabbing at the front of the show before we got started? You said, if you can't afford it,
oh yeah, don't touch it if you can't afford it.
if you can't afford it. Brothers and sisters, let me assure you, you're looking at two middle-aged women, one from the US and one from the UK. And if you can't afford it, don't touch it. And that, the remember, and I think sometimes our spiritual community in particular can get a little bit lost in the everything that's lovely has to be soft and squishy, and has to be amorphous without boundaries, and love is boundaryless, etc. I can tell you right now, in this lifetime, I have assumed the mantle of Joan of Arc. That should say an awful lot about who I am on this planet today. I held a mighty sword. Yes, it's soft. Yes, it's all love and all forgiveness. But I'm here to hold an incredibly bright light, just like my sister here, and all of you. And it does require a level of warrior fierceness.
Yeah.
That is,
Yeah, a certain level of armor, isn't there?
it's exquisite. And it's an exquisite position. And I can, embodying it has been, and coming into my own with it, and then I still am, it's powerful. So, Satara, what 2 or 3 things do you think our listeners and viewers can do to just kick off their engagement with sovereignty?
I think the most fundamental thing we can do is be honest with ourselves and start to really understand how we tick, to be able to look at the way energy is around us and what we gel with and what we don't. The first steps is to congregate with what we gel with, and then take a look at what we don't and work out why. Why is something not sitting right with us? Why is something triggering us? Why is that person over there? Does it feel like they're poking a stick at us on a regular basis? What do we need to look at? What are they gifting us to make us more whole? What do we need to learn from it? Everything that happens in my life that triggers me, I look at it, I pull it apart, I rotate it, I take it to the very nanosecond of what's happened to be able to understand what that was giving me. Because everything, whether you look at it as positive or negative, as we can do so easily here in these human suits, we will look at something as light and dark, positive, negative. We don't have this grey area, which everything is the grey area, really. So it's just learning about how you tick and being able to step into that better version of yourself, to know that somebody else can't coerce you into doing something that you don't want to do. That is something. It's like, no, this is where I'm sat. This is where I'm comfortable. This is where I will stay.
I love that. You've given so many clues and so many phrases that you as listeners and viewers can hang your hat on any of those and make them a little bit of a mantra, make them a little bit of an affirmation. I'm reminded to say out loud to you all, engage the word sovereignty. It is actually, you can feel the beauty of the word. There's something very quiet and powerful and assured in the frequency and the vibrational resonance, because mathematically it is designed, every letter of our alphabet, and they're short to say in English, 26 letters, comes very power packed with a line of frequency. And then you combine those letters into words. Those words take on phrases of those frequencies, and they all, because they have information encoded and embedded within them. So the word sovereignty is front loaded for you. Just walking around quietly saying to yourself in your head, I am sovereign. I am sovereign. It actually feels good on the mouth.
It does. It feels good on the tongue, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm going to go back to ancient Egypt and I'm going to do exactly the same phrase, I am sovereign, in ancient Egyptian. And you will feel the difference of how it works and the power behind the words. So, yakinya.
Do it again.
Yakinya. I am everything. Is how they would have termed it. Because they didn't need the hierarchy that we do now of sovereignty, which is how the planet has evolved. So it is basically saying, I'm everything.
So that was a
process.
Egyptian for sovereignty?
Yeah. It basically is, I am everything. It would be their equivalent translation to sovereignty.
Would you say that as we wrap up the show? Could you say that 3 times?
I can indeed. Yakhina. Yakhina. Yakhina.
Yeah, Kenya. I love that. You all, we have now wound our way through another episode of Esoterics Today with Amber and Satara. I am the Suburban Lightworker, and Jules, along with Satara Jules Lightbringer, wish all of you much love and engagement with sovereignty that will literally change your life, and wish that you come back with us next month. And please find us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on SoundCloud at Esoterics Today. If you'd like to join our community on Facebook, it is a closed group. Just ask to come on in. Esoterics Today with Amber and Satara. We are public on YouTube. Please join us there and share us with your friends. We are on SoundCloud, and you can just listen in and please share us also. We'd also love to hear from you, and just appreciate you being with us. We hope we've added to your day. Very much love, and thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll see you next month. Bye.